Hey there, it's me again, Vasudha, and I'm here to take you through chapter 2 of your CBSE NCRT's psychology textbook known as Self and Personality. So, guys, you've heard the word personality so often, but what does this term really mean? It's interesting that all of us, we know each other as individuals. Some of us who are outgoing, some of us who are smart, some of us who are very confident, others who are very timid and shy, few others who can be very charismatic or enigmatic. On the contrary, some of us are some individuals who are very artistic, we're brainy, we're smart, we're very street smart. Uh, Also, some of us are individuals who are great at being an all rounder. So, we're great at sports, we're great at our everyday life, we're great at making interactions, having smooth conversations, and winning our way through everything that comes on our physical trail. Other than those individuals who are thinning through life, who are not doing so well. So, what is it that's defining us, and what is it that truly makes us different from each other? This has a bit of the concept from chapter 1, which was talking about individual differences. So, well, what are these individual differences and what is this uniqueness which each of us bring with ourselves? That's what we're going to unravel today. So, when we talk about personality, it often entails the notion of self. And self is a crucial, unique aspect of our own personalities. Speaking of self, how many of us actually know the self? So, what is self all about? If you've pondered upon this question, you might have had this insight into self awareness, guys. So, if I may ask you, are you really aware of yourselves? And if the answer is yes, what did you unravel about you? So, all of the things which you listed out to be true for yourself are actually a part of self awareness. Self awareness is that ability to understand one's own self in terms of our preferences, likes, dislikes, the way we behave, why we behave the way we behave, or react and say things the way we do. This aspect of self awareness leads you to understand the self and also helps you to regulate your behaviors in times of crisis or conflict. So, when I have awareness of knowing the fact that I am a female, I'm 35 years old, I live in the south of New Delhi, I'm Asian, Indian, I love Chinese, I have a thing for horse riding, I enjoy making art, I love baking, and preferably love desserts more than food itself. That's me having the awareness of my likes, my preferences. My knowledge of the fact that I am an ambivert but love to be an extrovert when I see, when I deem that environment to be just right. My preference to engage in meaningful conversations over boring conversations, over just partying with loud music, is the awareness that I have of self. Okay? And such awareness leads you not just to help understand who you are truly, essentially, but also helps you get ahead in meaningful ways for your own self and to see your own self prosper and grow. So, guys, I encourage you to take a moment to list out the things which you truly know about yourself. With that, we're going to begin with today's lesson, which focuses on the relevance of self and, of course, personality. Let's go. So let's look at this. When it comes to the self, guys, self is all about a personal sense of self and a social sense of self. Do you agree that in your everyday you come across moments wherein you're just with you and it's just something which has to do very purely with who you are, and it's those attributes that really make you different from the others who are around you. So this sense of personal self is known as personal identity. It comprises of those attributes which you think make you the UST you. All right. Of course, there is something known as social identity. Social identity is that aspect of you wherein you are linked to the social world around you. They are actually something that you portray to your social agents, such as your friends, teachers, peers, your parents, your, other sets of social individuals who are around you. You basically understood with the group, the social context that you exist within. And that comes to be known as your social identity. Okay, so now there are ways in which all of our experiences are organized and they show up a lot in our behaviors as well. Whenever this happens, guys, that is how the self truly gets defined. Okay, so self and personality truly refer to the characteristic ways in which we define our existence. So, our existence comprises of so many different aspects from our everyday. It's the social context, it is the kind of interactions we have, it's the clothes we wear, it's the way we exhibit our behaviors in front of others and self. So, a wholesome, a global, a very characteristic way of all of that which defines our existence is what is understood as self and personality. If we have to further really explore and understand this self, from the list that you put out in the comment section in our introduction, I'm sure when you look at that list, you'll feel a totality of individuals' conscious experiences, ideas, thoughts, feelings with regards to yourself. Right? This totality of the list which you've created is what is defined as the self as reflected in this speech box at the top of the screen for you. It is my request for you to understand this definition as it will really help you to understand and highlight the keywords for your board exams. So please understand the totality of individuals' conscious experiences, ideas, thoughts, and feelings. It's all with regards to himself or herself. Pause, we're going to cut this. Let's just understand the self furthermore. Self is actually defined as the totality of an individual's conscious experience, ideas, thoughts, and feelings with regards to himself or herself. So, if you look at the list which we made in the beginning of the introduction of this chapter, do you sense a kind of totality of your own conscious experiences? It will give you a very wholesome sneak peek into your own self and really help you to understand who you truly are when it comes to you. Okay, that totality is what is identified as the self, and it can be understood very thoroughly with these keywords. Please make sure to mark these keywords so that you don't forget to write that in your board exam. It is the conscious experience, ideas, thoughts, and feelings. Okay, get to know yourself as a subject and an object. You focus on one, being the knower, and two, already someone who knows who they are, right? So you're either in the process of getting to know yourself better, or you're already in a place of being known about who you truly are. That is what self as a subject and self as an object claim about. So, as a subject who is an actor, you actively engage in the process of getting to know yourself. On the contrary, guys, as an object, which is the consequence, the self gets to observe itself and gets to come to be known. Okay, so it's not that you are in the process of knowing, but you're someone who's already gotten to know yourself, and that's when you are an object. So, this is the difference between self as subject who is in the process of getting to know itself and an object who is someone who's coming to be known, right? So please highlight the difference between the two, and this could be a grand 2 marker in your exam, so make sure to understand this well. So obviously there are kinds of selves. There is a familial relational self, there is a biological self, there is a personal and social self. There are so many kind of selves that exist in the real world. Do you agree? Can you all please take a moment to focus on these words? Focus on your biological self. That is the kind of self which you are from birth to date, right? Which is your self, which is to do with your biological age, which is to do with your biological heart that's beating, and of course, other physiological aspects of your body. There is something known as a personal self. This self is the kind of self which is all about you, which comprises of your interests, your preferences. They describe to you who you truly are, and which is very personal to you. Thereof, of course, there is something known as a social self. It is a self which you portray to the social world that is around you. It is the self which you exhibit to others. All your social agents, the way they know you, the way they understand you, is your social self, guys. And of course, there is a relational or a familial self. It is the kind of self which you show yourself to your family. All the individuals, let's say your father, your brother, your mother, your siblings, relatives, is what this familial self is all about. Let's understand this socio-cognitive perspective of self. So, guys, socio-cognitive, what does that truly mean? Socio is basically the social world around you, and cognitive truly means the mental frameworks which you use to understand the world around you. Okay, so cognition is to do with all those things which you're doing with your mind to make sense of the greater world, such as decision making, thinking, rationalizing, perceiving, is all what your cognition, which is the mental frameworks of your mind, do. Okay, so the social cognitive perspective of ourselves, it tends to tell us the way we perceive ourselves and the ideas which we hold about the competencies and attributes is what the socio-cognitive perspective says. So for example, I am Vasudha, and of whatever I know of myself, I'm very aware about my competencies. I'm very aware about the attributes that I have. That is my socio-cognitive perspective. So this comprises of three very interesting S's, which we're going to explore. The three S's are self-esteem, self-efficacy, self-regulation. Please understand the concept very carefully, because having done that, you will understand the socio-cognitive perspective of self very clearly. Let's go. Okay, self-esteem. So isn't a sense of esteem so important to us? So guys, whenever we speak about self-esteem, we automatically talk about our sense of self-worth, okay, and our own sense of value. So a sense of value worthiness is what self-esteem is truly about. So whenever we judge ourselves or others around us about this esteem, it is what self-esteem is all about. It is just the sense of worthiness. Interestingly, it has been found out that little children, when they speak about themselves, they speak about themselves in terms of their sense of worthiness, right? They usually speak things like that I am loved by my peers. They say stuff like I'm great at sports, or they say stuff like that I'm great at reciting a poetry. Okay, so whenever a child is talking about his goodness, it's basically him or her talking about their sense of value and worthiness. Okay, for example, that they're good at doing their homework. So studies have shown that children from the age of 6 to 7, they have largely developed self-esteem, which means that you largely developed your self-esteem either in your academic competence or in your social ability or in your physical and athletic abilities or in your physical experience already by the time you were 6 or 7 years old. Imagine having that physical appearance competence that young. Okay, so at the same time, if you have developed self-esteem at this age, it can also be true that you've not developed it either because of bullying or because of individuals who are pulling down your self-esteem at that age. Of course, guys, parenting plays a big role in the development of your self-esteem. And it's kind of shown that children, they tend to grow self-esteem based on those four categories, which is academic, social, physical, athletic, or physical. Okay, of course, yes, parents who are not able to find time for their children and really help raise their self-esteem might kind of suffer from poor or weak self-esteem and might not feel as competent or as equipped as the peers around them, and of course display less or low confidence. This was all about self-esteem. Efficacy. So self-efficacy, guys, is a very interesting phenomenon, and it was honestly given out by this guy called Bandura. Bandura said that the individual's belief about himself or herself about their own effectiveness is what self-efficacy was all about. So this is truly, guys, about your own expectation about yourself of how you could possibly do in a particular situation. Let's say that I am a marathon runner and I run a 500-meter marathon really well. But what if I ran the whole marathon and I surprise myself with the amount of running I do? Okay, let's say that I completed a marathon in a time limit which I had never kind of exceeded, and I exceeded my own expectations. That effectiveness was the belief that I had in myself about my ability to really truly do it, right? Get out ahead of my own ability or my knowing of myself and do something much more. That is understood as my self efficacy. It is the belief about my own effectiveness. So, the notion of self efficacy, of course, it's based out of this social learning theory, which was originally given by Bandura. And he said that children and adults, they learn this behavior by observing others. Okay, so whenever you're maximizing your potential, guys, when you're exceeding your own expectation for a particular outcome, is how self-efficacy shows itself to you. And yes, of course, according to the studies by Bandura, this is something that can be developed in you with the help of other social agents, with the help of your own parents, with, of course, some positive experiences, and believing in yourself truly helps raise self-efficacy. Last off, when it comes to the self-regulation, it is a charming ability which one can own. Now, what really is self-regulation? It is your ability to regulate, which means you pivot, you calibrate, you organize, and monitor your own behavior. Let's say that you're up to some habits which don't serve you, which are not feeling good to you. So, self efficacy there will be your ability to change those habits effectively and help you to organize and monitor your behavior in a way that you're able to get the kind of output you're seeking. So, let's say that I want to change my sleeping habits. Maybe I sleep too late at night and I would prefer to start waking up early. What I'd simply do is get determined, make up my mind, and set an alarm for earlier in the morning. Also, set an alarm to kind of get me to go to bed on time. Okay, this way I might be able to organize and monitor my own behavior and wake up earlier in the morning as desired by me. So, in self regulation, there comes the concept of self control. Let's say you're trying to give up wanting to have sweets, but every time you see something sweet, your sweet tooth calls to it and you want to eat it. Okay, so self control, guys, will be your ability to delay or defer the gratification of your needs. So, this delay or deferring of your gratification simply means that you're controlling yourself from moving towards what you're really called towards, which is the sweet that's tempting you. Okay, of course, there are some techniques for self control. The first is observation of your own behavior. Let's say that every time you're out shopping and you come across a cakery, you feel called towards the delicious, lip smacking fragrance of those savories or desserts, that tempt you. So, yes, you'll want to observe this behavior of yours. Then you would want to think about some self instruction. Maybe you can look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that, hey, savories and sugary treats are not that healthy very often, and maybe I can keep myself off this for a while. Okay, when you give that instruction to yourself in the mirror, maybe preferably looking yourself in the eye, that is self instruction. So you instruct yourself to keep yourself in check. Then there is something like self-reinforcement. So yes, every time you headed out for shopping and you come across a savory store which is giving out some delicious desserts and treats, every time you withheld yourself and not indulge with it, you can reward yourself for that positive behavior and for the pleasant outcome, which is that you kept yourself from your sweet tooth calling out to the delicious lip-smacking treats. Okay, each time you do that, that is basically self-reinforcement. So you reward yourself with something which you probably wanted long time. This, guys, is self-regulation, and it helps you to regulate your behavior in meaningful ways. Let's look at the last part of today's lesson that speaks about culture and self. So, guys, what do you think about culture? Do you think that the culture you live in kind of inspires your sense of self? Right? What if you were not an Asian and you lived in the African continent or you lived in a European continent? Would you be very different from who you are today? So, yes, the answer is yes, of course, because The culture in which you exist, it shapes your existence, it shapes your reality, it shapes your sense of self. Okay, so how this truly gets how culture truly influences your sense of self. It comes from the kind of traditions that your culture follows, the food that you eat, the festivals that you celebrate, the clothes that you wear, the kind of emotions that you raise with, whether if it's a collectivist culture you are born and brought up in, or if it's an individualistic culture which focus so much more on technology rather than on emotions. Okay, so this amalgamation of the various variables, the many factors, they influence who you are. And to understand this more, let's just look at the Western view of culture impacting the self and the Indian view impacting the self. So in the Western view, if you can look at the two circles below, you will see that there is, the specific person and a group. So we can see that the specific person is someone who is so farther apart from the group. This happens why? Because the boundaries between the group and the individual, which is the specific person, are so further apart. Okay, you must have observed that babies who are born in India are actually found to be sleeping every night between the parents. On the contrary, babies who are born in the Western world are actually born with a room of their own even before that they're born, and they actually sleep in their own room. So this gets segregated right at birth, and you may notice that the specific person is so further apart from the group. On the contrary, in the Indian context, the boundaries between the group and the individual person, they are merged. That means that we are very collective. Our collective has a lot of us more than I, me, myself, as is observed in the Western view. This connection of the group and the specific person or the individual is tightly knit together and is blended and merged together, where the boundaries between the two are blinded. They don't exist. Okay, specifically in the Western view, the self and the other, the boundaries are fixed, they're further apart from each other. In the Indian view, they're characterized by a shift between the self and the group. The self and the group, which is the specific person, they sometimes come further together, sometimes a little apart, but mostly they're blended together. When it comes to dichotomies in the Western view, there is a very clear dichotomy between self and others. Self in terms of others could be a person, could be a place, could be a thing. On the contrary, the dichotomies in the Indian view, they do not have very clear dichotomies. They're all blended well together. In the individualistic culture, which is the Western view, the individual members, they maintain a lot of individuality, right? They hold on to their own sense of self. On the contrary, in the Indian view, the collectivist culture, they remain in a state of harmonious coexistence. In India, how we have these huge families, we have like larger households with relatives and cousins living in the same household. So there is a lot of coexistence. Even the existence of nuclear families will have a lot of coexistence, wherein there are parents and siblings living together, which is mostly dominant in these Asian cultures, right? Which are also characterized as a collective because there are lots of people living in together, emotionally connected and attached to each other. Contrary to that, in the Western culture, they're obviously individualistic because there is this, clear dichotomy and distance between any two such individuals. So that was a little bit about culture and self. I'm sure that you guys would agree with whatever has been said so far. If you have any opinions which are different from this, please feel free to pin it in the comments section. I'm really hoping you guys have enjoyed today's exploration of self. And if you don't know self a little more than you did before the beginning of the video, I request you to make a little list of everything you know about yourself and email it to me written in the description box below, and I'll get back to you helping you raise more self-awareness. Until then, see you again and thank you for your focus. Bye-bye.